big banks still have big gender pay gaps. What are you going to do about it?
Well, we're going to hold another scrutiny session as a Treasury Select Committee to ask banks. Transparency is clearly making a difference in the sense of it's on the agenda now of boards to discuss. But how are we going to solve this? You know, what are the things that the lessons they are learning, the things that they know they've got to work on? I don't doubt that big banks want to solve this as an issue. They want to retain the female talent they've got. They know they need to recruit more women and put them into senior positions. But it's not just about the desire, it's about how are they going to do it.
Do they need penalties, do you think, to incentivise them? Is there a carrot and stick here? Well,
there possibly is. I mean, what's really interesting from the summit speaking here at Bloomberg today was actually the transparency. Having to admit that you've got a pay gap is uncomfortable for bosses to have to do. So I'd say that's a stick. I'm not entirely sure that fining, although it might sound good, I'm not sure it really changes behaviours. I think perhaps some financial incentives, and particularly this thing about, so we were talking about recruitment of skills and talent. You know, if you're investing in your female workforce and then they are leaving and maybe going to a competitor or just not staying around the market, you would hope that that's going to be enough for bosses to realise they're going to have to change. But let's ask the questions.
OK, one clear message that could be sent would be to make sure that the next governor of the Bank of England is a woman. Why not do that? Why shouldn't we insist on that?
Well, look, I think the Prime Minister was asked about that when she appeared before the what's called the Liaison Committee.
Yep.
And, I mean, she is a champion for women in senior positions, as she herself has done. It is actually a Prime Ministerial appointment, so I think she would be very interested. Look, I'm going to not comment on the appointment because the Treasury Select Committee has a role in the pre-commencement hearings. But I don't think it'll be any great secret that I also would love to see more diversity. And I think diversity at senior leadership in the city is really, really important in terms of the message it sends to all the other organisations.
You bring up the Prime Minister, so let's transition to the Prime Minister. Can you give us a sense of the timeline, do you think, that is now being discussed for Theresa May's exit?
Well, today in Parliament, something called the 1922 Executive, which is the backbench Conservative MPs Committee, is meeting the Prime Minister. I mean, clearly what we know is the week of the 3rd of June now, Parliament is going to get another vote, this time on the legislation that would implement the withdrawal agreement. It's quite difficult at the moment. We haven't seen that bill. It's quite difficult to know, though, how that's going to get through, given people seem to be getting more entrenched in their positions. And I think it's pretty clear that if that doesn't go through, then the Prime Minister has absolutely worked her level best to do it. But I think it's going to be the fact that she is going to have to hand over to somebody else to see whether that change in momentum, that change in leadership is able to make that difference.
So the beginning, you see the kind of the moment coming at the beginning of June. That legislation doesn't go through. We also get past the Trump visit to the United Kingdom. That is the kind of moment we should be looking at.
It's quite a big week. I mean, it's very difficult to say. You know, we just don't know what's going to happen in between now and then. But I think it would be really difficult to see, unless there's some other intervening factor, if that vote doesn't go through, how the Prime Minister... I don't know, but I think she would feel she has done her absolute level best, but unfortunately that has not secured a majority in the House of Commons.
Can you see a situation where she tags on a second referendum in order to secure Labour votes for that legislation?
It's certainly being talked about in Westminster. The Prime Minister has always been very clear that she does not support, in principle, a second referendum. I have to say, I don't think Jeremy Corbyn supports a second referendum either. So there may be some mutual interest in the two of them not having one. But equally, this is about the numbers in Parliament. And if enough Labour MPs said they would support a withdrawal agreement agreed between the two front benches with a second vote, then I'm sure that has to be a part of the discussions.
Would Nicky Morgan serve in a Boris Johnson government?
I think it's very unlikely that I would be asked. So, look, there's going to be a leadership contest. We assume I'm going to ask them all about their commitment to one nation conservatism and one nation values, which I hold dear. I think it's unlikely I'll be asked. I think it's probably unlikely I'd say yes.
And on that note, we shall leave it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.